Hey, how are we doing? It's Don, the auction professor here. Busy day. I've got some bolos I'm going to shout out. Some I've showed before. I've got a bunch of items that we purchased this week that I'm going to show you too. I've got another video coming up tomorrow. It's going to show you a place probably most of you have never sourced at and show you some new options. It's a niche market. I'll leave it as a surprise for what it is tomorrow. Hopefully I am coming out loud and clear for everybody. Hang on just a second while I pop around a few screens. Hang on 1 second there. Everybody should be receiving me at this point, I would hope. Let me see here. Everything else looks good on my end. Hang on 1 second. Let me just reload another page. For some reason, I'm not getting a correct feed. If everybody's receiving and can hear me, if somebody could just shout that out here. Because I've got an error on my side. Oh, it looks like it just cleared. Okay, sorry folks. It's going to be probably about an hour long today. Probably won't do a super long one. Again, it's been a real busy day, real busy week. For those in Patreon, I've already been in there today. I've answered a bunch. I already have a video. Maybe I didn't respond earlier, but I did include many of your questions in a video for those in Patreon. That's actually compiling right this very second. So that one should be up. I'll hopefully let it run and upload this evening. So it'll be up first thing in the morning real early. Worst case scenario, I start at the upload first thing in the morning, like around 5 or 6 in the morning. So those in Patreon, you will have a video up in the morning. It might be ending up to be 2 parts, 2 decent length, just because of sometimes it has compile issues when they're really long. Some of the videos, that's why I try to keep the Patreon videos down to like 30 minutes or so per. So anyway, with that, now I've got some items here and I've got some haul items here. I've got new video content coming out related to some of these. If you haven't seen the gold video from the gold buyer, I went to a shop that literally buys gold. He's like the only licensed guy in the town where I'm in. It's somebody I've dealt with for years. I've got a link to that video down below as well. Name of the company's Estate Jewelers, and Ed's the owner that I've been dealing with for some time. Well, him or his son, Milos, I believe his son's name is. But if you're into gold or you find scrap and stuff, there's a philosophy with it. There's always ways to get more money out of it. And in all honesty, if you're selling gold, most of the time on eBay, you're going to get less for it than you would going into the best shop in your town. And I discussed that too. I won't waste a ton of time on it. If you watch the video and you have any comments, leave them below that video. Again, the video is included down there in the description, or actually in the comment section. I have a comment down there with a link to that gold video. Gold-wise, I'm just going to touch on this just a hair more, just on the stuff. We don't look out and go out and let's say, hey, let's go find a bunch of gold. It doesn't happen like that. For us, we actually just randomly find it, or it shows up in big bulk lots of costume jewelry and things like that that we buy. And I know there's many videos of people opening up jars and things like that and finding gold. I've got other sources than those jars. So for me, I can buy, you know, bulk all gold colored jewelry and by the pound from some places like in my local area. It's going to take you searching out of the box to find this kind of thing. But, you know, I'm not the only one who knows a couple good areas and you know, to search for gold and stuff like that. But we run into it. I do buy stuff at auction when it's like a bunch of costume jewelry and, you know, who knows? Sometimes there is some real stuff in there. If you watch the video, I'm not going to shell out how much I made on it, but I think it'll be an eye-opener for those who don't know or are afraid of the gold market or afraid to be taken. And that was one of the biggest comments I had, is most of the people in that area aren't the most honest people. But in all honesty, I knew somebody in Florida. There was a place called Brass Canyon. It was on Highway 50 near Winter Garden, between Winter Garden and I think, like maybe around Old Winter Garden Road, I think, for those of you who are from Florida. And this guy, you know, I did stuff for eBay with this guy. He would give me stuff, or will let me take photos of items as well as the appraisals. And he just wanted a set fee, and then from there, whatever I got for it, I got to keep the difference. And we made thousands of dollars off of this guy. in Florida. And there's, possibilities with people, who are running their own business to do things like that. The gentleman in the gold video has a second floor in his facility that's just eBay. He does eBay, and they can list like 400 items in a day, from what I understand, with the people he has listing. I'm not sure how he does it all. I'm not, up on all that on his aspect of it. I know more about the jewelry side on that. We've done, again, jewelry and gold for years and years and years. One of my best purchases was gold. In my entire life, one of my best purchases was walking up on like 10 grand almost worth of gold for 330 some odd bucks. And that was like a killer price. I paid what they asked for it. If that's what they're selling stuff for and that's what I pay for it, that's fine. There's nothing wrong. You're not ripping somebody off if that's all they want for it. So at least that's my take on it. Somebody else might say, I was wrong for taking it at that price, but it's a business. If somebody offers you something, it's legit, it's not stolen, there's no ties to it, no matter what it's worth, chances are you're going to take it. If you're at an estate sale and you see something worth $1,000 and they got it priced for $5, are you going to say, hey, here, let me give you some more money? It's the same principle. It's just like when business orders from one company and the product is a set amount. That's the product. That's the price they want for it. You pay it and off you go. So Hauptmann, you'll want to watch the video tomorrow. I'm going to tell you that one there, and welcome to the show. The video tomorrow you'll like, Hauptmann, I guarantee it. Let's see here. What's he saying? Hey, Don, hoping August is better than July. 600 returns last month, plus my car was told when a tree fell on it while I was driving. Goodbye, July. Oh, sorry to hear that. A lot of returns. Returns for us, I don't have many. I have an item being returned right this minute. And I'm questioning on what it's going to look like when I get it back. So if it's not what it says it is, I contact eBay, or I don't give them the money back. Whatever the case may be, you've got some recourse these days. And, it depends on, obviously how your customer service is. If you've got like a real low feedback and things like that, eBay's going to look at that. Maybe it won't hurt your sales, as many people say, but it will hurt your ability for eBay to side with you versus somebody else. It's just my take on that. Well, I wish you better luck this month, Hauptmann. We've had a really good month, and I don't want to brag or rub that in. It's not the point. The point is that we switched up, and I saw a lot of stuff that maybe Hauptmann may not. We do wholesale, and I do RA. I have an art business and things like that, too. So these days, I don't look at my eBay as much as I used to on its own. Nowadays, I do a P&L. Well, I've done P&Ls for a while, but I do what's called a P&L for my business, and I do it constantly. At the end of each week, I put one together, and P&L is a profit and loss statement that any brick and mortar company or business is going to do for the most part. That's what I look at for my sales, and my sales are way up for, not just this time of year, but for any time of the year. And again, I'm not trying to brag. We've branched out and hit the markets. I don't sell in one platform. We've got 9 platforms that we make money on. 9. So, I'm not trying to just ramble on. I'm going to show you some items. I've got some haul items here. I've got a BOLO that I've called out on another channel, but I want to make sure everybody sees it here. I've got a video coming out on this, but I figured I'd shoot it out here. I've got staples that I buy all the time that I'm going to show you. And I've got some glass plate negatives, some larger ones that I'm going to show you from the University of Ohio in just a few moments here. But for us, it's been a really good week. And again, I feel for those folks, Hauptmann, I do hope it gets better for you as well, too. So, I'm not going to drill it in, but it is what you make of it to some extent. We go over and above what we need to do on many areas. I am very anal retentive about doing things, so if I see something sliding in a monetary wise, if I'm losing money in a category, we address it quickly. I don't, I can look at it week by week or day by day because I do projections as well. So if I'm down, I can see my money going down in like a certain category without using eBay. You don't need eBay for that, in all honesty. If you know your business and you know where you stand, you'll be able to look at these numbers off of eBay based on sales and category and things like that. But anyway, I dress them constantly, and we've switched up. I've dumped categories. We dumped clothing recently, as you do know. There's a few other things that I have dumped, or not necessarily dumped, but I dumped them off of eBay. We're probably moving more of our books to Amazon first. We still have a tentative date for full-fledged cross list with Sellbrite for the first or second week in October. Everything's still going just the way I was hoping. Wasn't as quick. We were actually wanting to be done by August 1st, but that didn't happen. We're going to be a month and like 2 or 3 weeks behind. So anyway, let me slide up here. Excuse me. I've had a cold on and off here. Anyway, the weather's been back and forth. I got stuck in rain the other day loading something up, and I was just drenched for like 3 straight hours. I had to keep going. We already had a vehicle rented to a U-Haul truck to pick up some stuff. So, I did pick up a storage locker. I don't have much video on it. I don't want to anger these people because I'd like to get some video at an auction, and I may be able to do that in the future. If you did see the gold video, again, not to bring that back up, but I've got another video just like that coming down the line for a box company. I'm going to show you what end cuts are and give you some of the inside secrets on getting the cheapest shipping supplies you could imagine. There's ins and outs in all this, so I'm going to break it down for you. I'm going to do a couple reviews on a few items that I use that I've had many questions on, and I'm going to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly on some of the packing things too. I've got packing videos that I shot, and I do apologize. I've got one on a frame that I shot like a month and a half ago, maybe even farther than that. It's been done. It's kind of forgotten about it, honestly. I had it on a sheet, and then I forgot to go back in, and I just remembered I had it. So that'll be probably coming up this weekend. But I'm going to show you how to cut down on breakable glass picture frames, really condense them down where they're going to get there, and you're not going to be dinged for any size-wise. I'll be able to get you to show you how to get them down to almost 3-inch round from the item you are actually shipping without any of that extra cushion boxing or anything else like that. It's a safe, proven method. I've done it many times with high-dollar stuff that even went to some museums. So anyway, let's see who's in here tonight. Said we'll play it by ear on how long we'll do tonight. Let me check my phone to see. Yeah, okay, we'll play it by ear. Welcome, Dad's Vintage Garage, Penny Day, Treasure Experts, Jason Blake, welcome. O'Shawn Deals, welcome. Great up north as well as where I am. Hustle and Grind Calgary, welcome. My son was just back from, they were just outside of Quebec in Guinirani or something along that line. I'm sure I totally butchered the name. Probably not even the exact name, but hey, Charles, how are you doing? Thomas Gardner, welcome. Wubba Lubba Dub Dub, how are you doing as well? I see several patrons. Mary, how are you doing? Sounds fine, thank you. My great finds for you. Hey, Don, how are you doing? Let's see here. I did get your message, my great finds for you. I believe that is the same one. I will respond it probably tomorrow. BCR, you've got something in the mail. It should be to you any day. I do have tracking on it, but I don't have it here to give it to you. But anyway, Chris, welcome. Digitus, coming through fine, thank you. Monique Hall, welcome. PJ Miller, let's see here, Chris Austin, shout. Sir William, thank you. Dan Sweeps, welcome. And now we're almost caught up. MCho56, welcome. Hey, Richard, how are you doing? Yeah, the gold video, I really enjoyed doing that more than anything else. That was like one of my favorite ones to do because I do have some footage from in behind the scenes at his facility that I'm going to shoot out to the Patreons. But we're going to go back in there and do a full-fledged thing. I'm working on a deal right now for my other channel, which is The Art Professor, which will be live here hopefully within the week. I'm going to do some... I've got a deal with a museum and some other places. You're going to get to see some fine-end stuff getting done, not just, me, but I'm going to offer you some other things and other options. Whatever I put even on the other channel is all going to be related to ways that people make money and make a living. So it's not just about me, so to speak, but, I'm going to show you a lot of how-tos. I've got a drawing series on the human form and things like that, too. And I think I've fixed all the glare issues. On a few of the videos I've seen, including like the Game of Thrones drawing that I did, there's a bad glare from the lead in the actual pencil. If you don't have the lighting right on that, you have to have a polarized filters and all this kind of stuff to get that glare off of it, and I didn't have it till recently. So anyway, you'll see some better videos on that actually look better. So Black Crystal Dice, how are you doing? Aaron, welcome as well. The Dap House Vintage, Billy B, how are you doing? I've sourcing been hot lately. I've been totally... Let me just shout out something here to you just to show you. I talk about quantity I buy all the time. I think everybody who sees the show knows I'm a quantity person. I bought 10,000, no exaggeration, liquor labels from the vintage from probably around 1940s through to about the 70s, in all honesty. Literally 10,000. This is some of what we've sorted through already. I've got them bundled so you can just kind of see. Not only does it have the main label, but it also has the neck label in most of the cases. Most of these are liquor and higher-end stuff. Not many beer in here. I wasn't worried about the beer. Some of them are local ones that had small distribution. I've got a little bit into them. Nothing super. I'll probably be able to sell about 15 or 20 of these, or 20 of these for top dollar and pay for every one of these. And I've got 4 or 5 bins like this. There's probably 2,000 labels in here, believe it or not. They're really thin. They fit in a small area. I've got them stacked on the sides. You can see this at about 1970, I think, is the oldest one in here, I think. 71, here's one that's a little newer, I should say. Just an example of this. These kind of things are stuff that I can put up for another 1970 for, say, $17.50 all day long, and then I'll just take whatever I can get on them. Average on stuff like this, I usually get 10 to say 14, $14.50 on average. And again, there are 10,000, no exaggeration, 10,000 labels that I got. I've got 2 more bins sitting there and another one over there that are just as full. I still have some that I didn't sort through yet, obviously. This was the first bunch we're going to list. It's going to take a little while to list that many. Some will go in lots. We also have, in that same lot, there's multiples of some. So it'll be a lot of, one listing with, say, 10 quantity. When they're common like that and they're not super, super rare, I don't have a big problem putting up quantity listings. But if, let's say, I find some labels in there that are worth $200-300 a piece, only one goes up at a time. No quantity listings ever, 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 ever. You're competing against yourself. You're downgrading your own listing by having more than one of them. Even if you do 2 separate listings, like let's say label number 1, label number 2 in the listing titles, which is legit in eBay. That's the only way to do it too, to have 2 of the same listings, because otherwise you'll be dinged for duplicate listings, and then eBay will only show one of the listings and you'll be paying for the second one even though it's not showing. So anyway, that's just one of the good hauls. And I drove a little bit to get that. That was from a collector who used to work at a brewery for many, many years as a regional. Somebody who's been up in the company. He had the ability to get import labels, early labels, and stuff. And when he took over his position, they had a collection in the back and filing cabinets. The place went under, and he had a huge assortment. I bought every single label the guy had, so no one else got a ding on this at all. This would have been something that probably would have went to auction and been sold in a couple hundred at a time, or individually possibly, even at a local live auction, because there's specialty paper auctions that you can go to. I always like to get them before they go to a paper auction, because then the price for me is greatly increased. Usually it's people that just don't want their name out there. They just want to be quick with it. It's an estate, they're upset. They may have hired somebody else, not an estate company, because there are other services and other people that will have contacts similar to what I do and will be able to liquidate an estate without going through an estate seller. They may end up selling some of it to an estate sale company, but they won't directly go through it. They'll be like a broker, an estate broker, I guess maybe you'd want to call it. So, you got to be heavy into this to know when the stuff comes up, because it'll be like a word of mouth from someone you've never met sometimes. That they'll tell a dealer will mention it to a guy you deal with, and then through word of mouth you'll get something. That's sometimes why it pays to offer a finder's fee on stuff, because it gets out there. So I may pay a finder's fee to one guy, and he may give $20 of that or half of that to somebody else, because he himself is going to pay part of that as a finder's fee to get people to tell them. So there's people that make money off of us, and all they do is pass on word that this guy has something for sale or this woman has something for sale. Believe it or not, and I don't really care if they make money that way as long as I get something out of the deal. It doesn't matter. It's a cost of doing business when I shell out this kind of money for something like this. I'm not going to tell you what I paid for it. That's an insider secret, but let's just say I have almost nothing into this huge lot. So, at least nothing in my mind. Maybe it's a lot to some other folks, but I don't have that much into it. It's hundreds, but, not into the multiple thousands, let's just say. That bin of labels weighs maybe 10 pounds or more of solid paper, with some sleeves and stuff. But that's a typical pick for us. That many labels is not unheard of. It's more than I've gotten in months, but, I get thousands sometimes, on any given week. And, that's just what we look for. It doesn't have to be old. It doesn't have to be vintage paper or real vintage like Victorian or, anything like that. There's paper just like that that's worth good money. Stuff like that doesn't show up very often, so many people just don't realize, value on it sometimes. When it does show up, people sometimes don't have the money. They're afraid to invest in it because they don't know the value on it. There's not a lot of those up on eBay just because people, again, they don't think about it. They don't want to spend the time to list, 10,000 listings. We're not going to do 10,000 listings, obviously, out of it. There's a bunch that are dupes and things like that, too. But it's going to be thousands and thousands of listings. End of the day, it's going to be a lot of money. It's going to be residual income that's going to come in from the day we list it. Again, 3 to 5% of whatever we list, whatever day we list it, sells immediately. I'm sure there'll be many people out here who will tell you the exact same thing, not from just me, but from other subscribers. And if you list daily and you list a bunch each day, you're going to sell a bunch each day. That's on top of everything else you've been selling. So for those of you who are having slow sales, and I'm not trying to say this is anybody specific, but if you're having slow sales and you're not listing, you're just sourcing, that's all fine and dandy to source. But at the end of the day, when you come home, you're going to have to list something. Every day is the best bet. You're going to get better sales, you're going to get better boosts, you're going to get better visibility, and you're going to sell more because you're listing more. So, that's just the way it goes on that. Excuse me, let me get a drink here. I see we already got the negatives on here. Fine and dandy if that's what you want to do. If you haven't hit the like button, though, and you do like the comments and like the feed, please hit that thumbs up for us here. Again, I'm sorry about my throat's been killing me here. Now, I talked about these on Dom, Primetime Treasure Hunters. Again, we're doing some stuff with him. These are souvenir trays. They're made out of pot metal, which is like a pewter lead mix. I'll have to wash my hands, obviously, when you mess with these. They're usually gilted or colored, full color. Again, I have talked about these before. I have shown these before. Perfect example. Let me flip to another screen so I can make sure you can see the price. I spent 80 cents on this one. How can you go wrong with 80 cents? California, 1950s, pre-Disney. There's no Disney shown on this little map here. So you can date something like this based on that aspect. Now it's got, I'm not sure, iodized coloring on it of different colors, as you can see. These are nicer ones. California's hot. For 80 cents, I'm putting at least $57.50 on this. It might sell for that immediately. I may need to put higher. I don't know. I'll have to look this one specifically up. But these are like dresser encounter trays is what these are called. People will throw their keys in them on their dresser. It's just a souvenir. That's usually what these are used for, like key dishes and things along that line. This one's marked made in Japan, 1930s, pre-World War II, I would say. Or is it? No, this one's probably later. I'm sorry. This one's probably 1950s. California, I see Universal Studios. So Japan, you would see it made in Japan pre-World War II. You'd see made in occupied Japan just after post-World War II. And then again, you'd see it back to made in Japan. Because there was a law, I think 1897 or somewhere in that range, that made it required to put the country of origin on stuff if it's sold out of that country to be marketed that way. But here's a Colorado one. This one's an early one here too. This is probably 30s on this one. Here's another early one. This is a dustpan though on this one here. And what city is this? If my eyes can read it. And I'm not going to be able to read the city on here. Oh, let's see here. I still can't make out the city on it. Railroad. Looks like Chicago in all honesty. But anyway, stuff like this, You know, I put $57.50 on it. Most of these I pay $1 at. Savers, I could find these for $1.99 to $2.99 depending on the one, and sometimes down to 59 cents or so. That California one would have probably been $1 at Savers when ours was open. We don't have any Savers anymore, but you know, it's all nicely embossed and the whole works. Nicely detailed. Best one, as I've showed before, and I've probably got about 20 or so of these now. Now, this is from 1910. This is the oldest one I've ever had. It even has a little chip on it, but even with that chip, something like this being this old, you know, I think it has Ellis Island on here too, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, it's got information on where it came from and when it was given out. You know, this still might be 50 or 60 bucks, and I think I paid $1 for it too. They're dresser trays. It's a good bolo. I do find them all the time. I mean, I've got a stack right here, and there's some more over there. It's just, you know, you want to be careful so they don't get all scratched up and scuffed up on them too. But that's a good item I look for. I'll go back to some questions in just a minute here. Let me get these out of the way. I've talked about photos and things along that line that I get. Now this is, now it might be a little hard to see. I wish there was a better way to show you. These are glass plate slides, or not slides, actually negatives. In fact, let me see if I can't do it with my phone. Hang on, folks, just a second. I'm going to turn the flashlight on, and we will see if I can't get you a image of it. Hang on just a second here. Let me see if I can do this. Oh, probably not. I guess you can kind of see the stuff on it. But these are inside of the Ohio State University. These were actually taken inside of the university. And this is the equipment, and there's engines being made, like airplane engines being modified and stuff. And I'm not sure how that would play in it, but it has official Department of Photography from the university on it. And not only that, I got a book. In fact, I can show you what's on that now that I think about it. This is the slide I first showed you. There's actually printed versions of these, and these are large format. I paid $25 for about, say, 75 or 80 of these, and I expect to probably put 75 or 80 on each one that I have the photos with them, and then they'll sell the rest depending on it. And they're all Findlay and Ohio State areas, and on the outside of each one says where they're at, the location, the building they were taken in. And there's a lot of inside shots of like just stuff inside there. This is the second lot I've gotten from Ohio State, all within, say, a 5 or so time frame of production. They came from the same auction company that I've gotten the other ones for too. I don't know, maybe they bought out a lot and they're mixing them up. Auction companies sometimes will buy out an estate. They won't, you know, do an estate sale. They'll buy it all out, and then they'll piece it out. They'll do like a whole bunch of World War II collectibles in one auction. They'll save a bunch for another auction. That way they can draw more people in. If they auction all that stuff all off at once and they own it, you know, they're going to have one good sale, and towards the end of the sale, some of that stuff won't sell as high because everybody will spent their money in the beginning usually. That's just the way I see it. The high dollar stuff usually goes first in an auction if you haven't been to an auction, so that the people with the most amount of money haven't spent a dime, they're sitting there, they can get the most for the best items there. That's usually what an auction does around here. Can't say they all do that, but it's been a ploy. I've known many auctioneers, and that's what they do. You know, that's what I would probably do, and I personally would split them up. So there's auction companies around here that have split up like an estate sale over like 6 months worth of auctions. Again, they'll trickle out, so when they show the photos online for what's included in the auction, they'll be able to include a bunch of neat stuff in there to at least draw people in, and it'll just be leftovers to some extent from other auctions. So, you know, just FYI on that. Let's pop over and see where we're at on questions. My feed's terrible, so it is gone right this second. Hang on. Let me see if I can click it back up. Okay, feed's coming back up. Give me a second here, and I'll figure out where I'm at now. Hey, Lex, how are you doing? I got Pat D's. Welcome, Pat D's. Pat D's 72. You guys should check him out, too, if you haven't. Barb's from Southern California. I've got quite a few people on today, then I guess from California as well. What's your eBay seller name? You just watch any of my What's Sold on eBay videos. I've got one every single week. You can plain as day see it in there. I don't like to type it out too much just by search issues. But if you want to know look in one of the videos, and it's in every single one. Not only is it in there, you can see my actual seller name, my feedback, everything on it too. So it's a very specific in every single video. You can check it out. So hopefully that's for you, Brian. Lex, I was busy all June and into July. Now crickets. I'm on live feed, guys. Okay.
Well, he just needs some isopropyl. He fell and hit it dead.
Okay, well, I'm on live feed, guys. I've got people just walking in. Sorry, folks. Let's see here. What's your eBay? We got that one. Click on the thumbs up. Yes, please hit thumbs up if you have not. Tess, one of the most knowledgeable resellers. Well, thank you very kindly, Tess. Let's see here. Kathy, welcome, Kathy. One of our Australian folks. Listing and listening. Very good. You are probably morning, if I'm not mistaken. Hey, Karen, how are you doing as well? Welcome. House of Treasures, welcome. MJ, how are you doing? There's Craig Landsharp Pickers on. Welcome. If you haven't checked him out as well, too, I have done some video stuff with him as well, too. He's a real good guy. He's got a good channel also. Simple Fit Life, welcome. East Coast of Florida. Been there many times. I used to live in Flagler Beach, actually, if you know where that's at. Disney Family 515, welcome. Let's see here. My feed just popped, so hang on just a second here. We're having our best month, but only because of some recent sourcing items. Rummage for riches. Ours has been great, but again, we do get stuff in constantly. It's not just me sourcing, of course, and it's not just me listing. We've got many employees, so. Kathy, the gold video really opened up my eyes. Yeah, I've been wanting to do that, but I wanted to, there's a lot to jump through and stuff I've got to set up to do something like that. They've got security systems and things like that, too. We were careful not to film certain areas. And stuff along that line too. But those in Patreon, you get to see a little behind the scenes video as well on that. So that'll be coming up here this week. Let me pop down here. You're the first person to say my name correctly. Well done. Well, thank you. Let's see here. Pop down. Detroit, flipped it for real. Welcome, welcome. Paper is always good. I source in Detroit occasionally, too. Usually I can come away with thousands of 45 records. Lex bought 500 liquor labels. Still haven't scratched the surface on listing them. Yeah, labels can be tough if you don't know. Most of them you're not going to find any comps to compare them to. So just keep that in mind. I know enough on labels, and I can usually date them very, very closely. We've dealt with, a couple 100,000 labels in my day, I guess I would say. We've probably got that many in-house right this very second. No exaggeration, probably 100,000. I keep trying to estimate, how much material I have in-house, and, there's might be 1 million pieces of paper in here that we haven't listed, in all honesty. But, we've got nothing into it. Like those labels right there, I could list, a couple dozen and pay for them. And, I'll have almost 10,000 labels still left. So that's why I mess with this kind of stuff, because it's almost given to me. Even if I'm spending $1,000 sometimes for something, it's almost given to me just by how cheap it is. Let's see here. Hey, Marie. Welcome. Let's see here. Well, thank you, Wubba Lubba Dub Dub. I would love to see how you store your inventory. Yeah, I'm going to do a new one. I do have a video on it, but I've got a brand new updating one coming out right now. So you'll get to see that here very shortly. We've got some folks here, so I'm sorry, I apologize. Is it a dustpan or for crumbs? Yeah, I would say that's exactly what that was, Lex. Something along that line. A lot of those, like on these trays, most of them aren't going to be worth the fortune. I'm telling you right now, it's just like any other item. 95% of these probably aren't worth buying, unless you get them dirt cheap. Quarter a piece, I can put 4 or 5 in a lot from the same area, and probably get 4, 5, 6, $8 a piece out of them in a lot. So most of them aren't worth a bunch on their own. Many of them I don't mess with. The majority I don't mess with, but I got 20 or so out of a month or so of picking these. That's probably about a month. I usually wait and sell them all at the exact same time. I'll list them all together, not as one big lot, but individually, but all at the same time. There's people that just collect these little tip or souvenir dresser trays. That's all they collect is stuff like this. So just keep that in mind when you're out there sourcing on stuff like that. And it is, I guess, somewhat crap. It's made out of really cheap metal. It's nothing really fancy or anything like that, in all honesty. Let's see here. Picking NW, how are you doing? JL Raka, how are you doing? Designer Store and More, welcome from Denver. I've been to Denver a couple of times. We went to a huge restaurant had like dance floors bigger than most restaurants. It had a slide in there. Rocky Mountain oysters they had on the menu too. I'm not going to tell you what that is if you don't know. Auction-wise, I very, very rarely do. Some people do it and thinking stuff are rare, and what they end up doing is they'll list it low thinking it's going to go really high, and then they'll just sell it low because there's not enough people on at that specific time. But if you would do things as a bin at a real high price, you have more chance in selling it for a higher price. If you look, you can look this up yourself to prove that this is the fact. Just do a search on eBay and comps and compare the amount of sold and prices, not just how many sold, but the prices they sold for of bins versus how many were auctions. And you can sort that out on eBay. So, the information's there. You can prove it to yourself if you doubt that that's the case. Because I've had people tell me that's not the case. Auction everything, 99 cent. No one in their right mind should be doing 99-cent auctions, in all honesty. It's just not a way to do it in my book. I mean, you're giving away just a bunch of stuff. You're wasting time, energy, efforts, the whole works. And if there's not enough people on rarer items, or it's a scarce item that there's so few people collecting it, you may not get anybody on there to, bid the item up. But if you just put it on, that same person who might have just bid your opening bid and no one challenged him may have bid a couple $100s on it as a bin and bought it that way. So, that's how I look at it. I can tell you, since we've stopped doing mostly auctions and just strictly do bins, my sales have gone up. That's a fact. I mean, I can't deny that. And there's no other way to put it is the fact that bins get you more money for the most part. Now, if it's something rare and there's a huge amount of collectors on eBay at any given time, then yeah, put it up as an auction because you're fairly safe. Vintage paper like stamps or covers, postal history, stuff like that goes fairly well. Like if it's the Hindenburg, though, or something, if you don't know what the Hindenburg is, please look it up. I've got a video just on that, but I'm using this as an example because most people think it's rare and they'll throw it up as an auction, and it doesn't go for a ton of money because the Hindenburg flew many, many times before it blew up in 36. So there's a ton of paperwork available from it. So you're not going to do better by putting it as an auction because they'll just pass if it gets up above a certain point. But if you just put a price on it, someone may want it and not think about how high it might go. So, that's just the way I look at it. 9:30 a.m. for Kathy in Brisbane. 3-day weekend of listing in Amazon FBA. Yes, that's a good thing. Merrick 7, welcome. Carl Klasenex. Do you ever give someone more money if you later think you didn't give them enough for their items? No, a deal's a deal, and that's the way it goes. If I overpaid for something, someone's not going to give me my money back if I go and say, hey, I paid too much and I didn't make enough profit. It's the same thing. If you go to a store and they got it priced at something, you're not going to be able to, just say, hey, it was priced too high. I didn't want to pay that much. That's how I look at it. I don't go back and give somebody money. If it's a friend deal and, I'm not sure, we have some prior thing, if it goes for more, I'll give you some more money. And I've said that in the past on some deals. I use my best judgment. I never try to rip somebody off, but you want to get everything as low as you can, obviously, to make as much money as you can. It's just a no-brainer. You got to draw a line somewhere, like in like a church group or something like that. I volunteer time to help a church group and a ladies' society. So, I do stuff like that as well, and I'll do stuff for them for free, and I'll give them advice and things. It just depends on what I'm buying from. If I'm buying from a church sale and they're giving away Bibles, and I know I can make some money. I almost always donate some money unless I'm buying a bunch of stuff and they're already getting a bunch of money. I'm not greedy to that extent. I do charity for stuff too, so I'm not. It's not all about the money. Let's just put it that way. But if I get a good deal, it's a good deal. I paid what I paid. They were agreed on it. It's just the way it is. Oh, this is 3 cast iron military soldiers on motorcycles. They're about 4 inches long. Couldn't find the maker's mark. It's probably a Hubley or a knockoff of Hubley would be my guess on something like that. They were like the main producers of like cast iron motorcyclists. And plus then everybody knocked them off too. Yeah, Brian, I've got like 500 and some odd videos, maybe something like that. Maybe it's 600. I even lost count. Just FYI. People price their items on low bid auctions when comping. Big mistake. Yeah, I don't. When I look up prices too, if I see there's only 1 or 2 of anything sold and the price is low, I'm gonna at least mark it up 3 times what the last one sold for. If there's only 1 or 2 up, don't get locked into seeing. Let's say there's an item that you find 3 comps all in the $10 range, and they were all bins. I'll buy it now. So I would triple whatever that price was on those 3, and that's what I would list it as a bin. Because the first person might not have known and put it up too cheap, and it sold as a bin really quick. He couldn't go back and change it. Second person figured maybe that's what they sell for. Third person probably did the exact same thing. Too many people price it at what they always see it selling for. That's fine and dandy with clothing. That's fine with video games. That's fine with books. That's fine with electronics because you're not going to get over what the going market rate is. There is no going market rate for most antiques. That's the point. So you may have the only one up at any given time. There may be 2 or 3 in solds, but that may only mean that there's 1 a month that sells. So if you're the only one up, most people who are buying antiques and collectibles aren't going to price them. They don't think there's a way to do that. A lot of people don't even realize that you can look at ended sales on eBay. If you go to garage sales enough, like a lot of people do, you'll see people with printouts of what they're going for. And many times all they're showing is the list price, not the ended price. They don't even know sometimes how to do that. So I always price higher on vintage collectible stuff. I know what I usually get out of certain items, like those labels. I can pretty much sit there and won't have to look up any of them. Out of all that 10,000, other than maybe the 1940s beer labels. Those are about the only ones I'll probably have to look up. There's like areas, similar ones sell for similar prices. There's only so many manufacturers of those types of alcohol. So one company label is usually in a certain range for certain eras, for certain times. Just, that's just the way I do it. Dom, I think you typoed Don. Collectible knives. I do mess with some collectible knives, but they're mostly military bayonets, things along that line. Trench knives, D-handle, Bowie knives, things like that is what I would mess with. Where are we at? How do you appraise stuff and buy it too? If you're talking about like giving people prices, I do appraise things for friends and for a few businesses and companies to get into the sale ahead of time, even if they won't let me buy it at the appraisal time. They usually set stuff and I'll know where it's at, and they'll lead me in the right direction when I walk in the door. So I usually have some sort of heads up on it, in all honesty, when I do the appraisals. Knowing what stuff goes for is key, whether you got to look it up on a phone or not. Most of the time when I'm buying paper, I've got a solid understanding of the whole paper area. There's very few times I have to look up most anything in paper. Mostly records I can whittle, like if it's like a lot of 5,000 records. Either I'm going to buy the whole thing or I can whittle it down to maybe 100 or so out of that entire lot that's worth buying, and I'll just buy those if I'm able to do that. You just got to know your area, I guess. It's going to take you time. Look up everything if you don't know. That's just what I can say. I mean, like with buying 10,000 labels, I know what I'm getting myself into. I know how quickly I can list them. I know they can all go through my duplex scanner, that Epson scanner. I've showed it many times. I've even shown in my Patreon group how to use and do all the settings in there, how to adjust it so it works fine, how to adjust your image, your borders, all that stuff. That scanner, thanks to Popeye's Postcards, I got that from one of his videos. That scanner is the bomb when it comes to scanning paper. Those labels, you adjust the actual thickness for the scanner, and it'll scan those perfectly fine. I can do 500 or so of those probably in an hour or two, straight out, no exaggeration. I'm going to put a video together showing you how many you can scan in an hour. I'll just pull out a bin and we'll scan the entire thing one day in a video. I'll time lapses. You won't be bored with just watching, a bunch of stuff like that too. So, Rob, MJ, welcome. I got Rob. Thanks for putting in your time and knowledge in your great videos. I enjoy them very much. Well, thank you very kindly. Miss French Twist. eBay can be a sort of price guide. Yeah, I use completed listings. It depends on what you're selling. Completed listings, as I just was saying too, though, aren't going to give you an accurate price on vintage collectibles on many areas. Even like what's the other service? WorthPoint still isn't perfectly useful. Terapeak has many issues, and I'm going to go into Terapeak in another video too. So if you want to know the ins and outs in Terapeak, I'll give you that as well too. So like on pricing, as I said, a lot of the vintage items you can set your own price above what other people have sold them for, as long as there's not more than, say, 3, 4, 5 of them that have sold in the last 90 days. Comp sales are for 90 days, so that means 3 months. So there's a perfectly 100% chance on many items that even though 3 or 4 sold, that you may have the only one up at any given time. And again, people don't look at comp sales for most antiques. If they see a postcard, they may have a ballpark range they want to pay for it. It doesn't mean that's what it's worth or not worth. It's just that's what they expect to pay for a specific card. So if you don't know your cards or you price them, half of what you should, that's your mistake for not thinking that, hey, maybe I should up some of the prices on these. At least that's how I look at it. I get probably in at least half of the items that I sell, I get more than most people do for those items right off the bat. Just because I price high and I work on the fact that people are window shopping my store. They don't necessarily know what they're looking for. That's one good plus for having a ton of stuff in your store. The store I share with you, I think we're back up. We ditched like 2,300 listings in one day where we moved them around, so you won't see those. But then we've added a bunch more too. So I think we're at 26, maybe 27,000 items in the store I share with you right now. And of course, we do have 3 stores that we have stuff in too. So. Thank you, Pat. I appreciate that. Do you ever touch camera stuff? Seems so much value there that people are scared to touch. I've got a ton of camera stuff. I show it in videos. In fact, somebody was just talking about camera stuff. They were talking about Bolex in one of the video. I think it's in my Facebook group, if I'm not mistaken. And basically, in fact, I've got a huge assortment. I sell camera stuff every single week of my life, probably. I buy big bulk lots of camera lenses, lens caps, cameras in general. SLRs are mostly what I mess with. Single lens reflection cameras, which are the high-end cameras. In fact, I have a DSLR camera. We've got 3 Nikon D 5300s is what we use. I love cameras, got many of them. We sell them constantly. How many times? Hang on, let me pop up, make sure I didn't miss one. My feed just disappeared. How many times have buyers tried to scam, cheat you? Very, very rarely, SW. Trying to think of the last time it's even happened. It's been a year or two since I've had any issue that I can remember. Maybe not quite that long ago now that I think about it. I had one where somebody tried to pull a fast one, and I don't remember the whole case because they don't happen very often, and it's not a big deal. I just move on from there. But eBay sided with me. I didn't end up giving him a full refund. I think I only gave him half. And then I never heard another word. If you have free returns, you can give partial refunds and all kinds of stuff like that. You can even refuse to refund and challenge the case. So let's say eBay closes a case in the buyer's behalf. I can come in and challenge it, and I've won the last ones that I don't think I've lost one where I've challenged it. Maybe the other person got to keep the money, but eBay gave me my money on top of it. Either way, I didn't lose anything. If I'm in the right, I'm going to argue till I'm blue in the face. It's the principle of the matter in my book. You can argue with eBay as long as you're in the right. I don't worry what they think about the situation. As long as I know what I'm talking about, and they have sided with me. You got to know the rules inside and out like the back of your hand, in my opinion. You got to know what they've done in the past. Like if I say I want, do this, it's, not, I didn't do anything wrong, fix it, and they tell me they can't, usually I'm able to come back and say, well, I know you did it on such and such a date because I keep track of all that. Make notes on who you talk to, write the names down, keep a log when you have to deal with these things, so you can come back in, even if it's not on the record, or the employee you're talking to currently may not want to look through all that. You can just say, hey, on this date, you guys did the exact same thing for me, and like courtesy refunds and things like that too. Left Facebook completely. Does your patron have a place to ask questions? Yes, it does. Mostly it's $9.99 is the one you would want on Patreon. Again, not to call it Patreon, but I do have Patreon. It's mostly just content. There's at least 2 videos new every week. They're usually 30 or more minutes of video. So it's about the same amount of content-wise in a week of YouTube, but it's condensed into several videos instead of a bunch of little videos, I guess. And it's more specifics and things. There is a community tab where you can post photos. Unfortunately, there's only 1 photo can be posted at a time. But that feature is going to change in Patreon, because I just got to notice that I can post multiple images now, and it's going to be broadcast to those in Patreon. You will be able to post multiple images. I had a comment for a Patreon on that as well. I don't have Apple products, so I am looking into an answer on the iPod for posting photos onto Patreon for my patrons. I will hopefully have an answer. They're not the best on answering, in all honesty, getting back with us on Patreon. Even as a Patreon producer on their platform, they still don't answer my questions very quick at all. They must have a very limited group of people to answer those, and they don't even answer on the weekends at all from the way it looks. If you tried Mercari to sell, I wouldn't waste my time on it personally. I don't sell that kind of stuff. Most of the antiques and collectibles sell so much better somewhere else. It's not worth me risking a learning curve, because the platforms that we sell on are the key. I'm going after selling vintage on Amazon full steam as opposed to branching out, because we've been on Amazon a while. The more I list, the more I sell on Amazon. And if you have the numbers like we do, it doesn't cost you a dime extra to... I could sell, 50 items, or I could sell 10,000 items on Amazon. It's still the same $39.99. If you're not on Amazon and you've got, FB items and stuff, you've got nothing to lose by cross-listing all of your items. And that's why we did Sellbrite, and we're into Sellbrite, because we want to cross-list all of those items. Every vintage item we have, every magazine. I've been talking to folks left and right these days. This has opened up my world to a lot of other areas and stuff by talking to other folks that hit me up on my email. You can send me messages here on YouTube. If you go to the About Me page here on YouTube, there is an email address to my email. I these days I get a ton of emails, so I don't get to answer them daily like I used to, but I do answer most of them. Can't answer every one though, but I do answer ones that are helpful to my audience, of course. But I'm not going out to new platforms until we have everything I can listed on Amazon, Etsy, and across the board. And with Sellbrite, I can do that with one single button. I only have to type in a listing once in Sellbrite, and Sellbrite does everything else. If I sell it on one site, Sellbrite takes it down on the other sites. It's not possible on other ways. I'm not going to go to Mercari or anything else. We did Poshmark for a little while. Wasn't my thing. Don't like the sharing and all the other aspects of it. Just not my thing. Nothing wrong with it. It's still a decent platform for what I see, but it's still like a 200th of what eBay is. It's just another platform. It's new. They don't have a big base around it yet. And there's other issues too, and I'm sure they'll have to address the returns and all that policy too to be viable and to compete. Because the only way you can compete is to be like Amazon or eBay to some extent. Let's see here. Any money done? Old newspapers from 40s and 30s. Yes, there is money in that Marrakech 7. Mostly war-related newspapers. If you can get them dirt cheap, I would never spend more than, say, 50 cents for a 30s or 40s newspaper. If it's a war issue, maybe $1 at most. But usually I can get a box of, say, 100 or so 40s or below newspapers for like 15 or 20 bucks at a sale, in all honesty. So, use that as a benchmark. If it's more than that, I usually don't mess with it, because they're going to sit for a little while unless it's a real good title. If the bomb dropped or something like that, you're going to get good money. Hitler Dead or War Over, VJ Day, any of that stuff will get you some money. The comic sections I do the best on. A full-page comic from, say, 40s or before, if it's the right one, like a Superman or something like that, might go for $100 on its own. sci-fi ones from that same era, the same kind of price range. In my personal opinion and what I've done, we used to find a bunch more of them. Like even standard Buck Rogers full pages used to go for 30-40 bucks back in the day. Not so much anymore, but there's still many that do like the early Supermans. Harlan's Reseller. How are you doing, Harlan? Check him out too. He's in there with Scott, if you don't know. So anyway, Bearded Picker. I'm sorry, brain freeze there. And I just was watching one of his videos the other day. I've received a design invention on a game from 1930. Where do I go for pricing? Look up Terapeak if you haven't tried, Danielle. I would try Terapeak first. Chances are you're not going to find that specific game or any of that stuff on there. You're going to have to price it by similar items. Look up the game. If the game's high priced and other ones that you find for other inventions were something that went for decent, you can kind of estimate it by that. I do like Sun stuff, like items, similar items to that. You're not going to do apples to oranges. You're not going to be able to find the identical items on many things like that. It's just not happens in the world that I sell in. My feed just disappeared. Hang on just a second here. Where are we at? Hang on, folks. Sorry. Okay, true. Miss French Whiz. Pricing can be a tricky business. It can. Once you've got it down in anything I sell, I know my prices. That's why I don't do videos usually out of my area, because I don't want to give you information that I haven't locked in on that. Everything I show you in the videos, I'm very confident on my prices, at least what I get out of them. I can't say everybody gets the same prices. You know, you get locked into a low price store and all your stuff's low price, they may just look the other way, or, you know, you're not going to be able to raise the prices. You may lose business. But if you put yourself out from the start as a high-end dealer, your prices are high, you know, but you've got everything uniform and across the board the same, you know, and your feedback's good and you do the extra mile, you know, you're able to do better and sell more items for a higher price if you got that built into your system. So let's see here. Yes, hit the like button if you haven't. Thanks, Tess. A&M Hunter, how are you doing? eBay, the electronic guy, can be really dishonest. Oh, electronics guys. They buy your things and farm pieces off and want to return them and get their money back. I have heard that. I don't sell anything like that anymore except vintage pieces. Most of the time, if I buy vintage electronics or electronics in general, I will disassemble them. Most every reel-to-reel I get nowadays, I tear it apart into pieces. Every single one. I don't care if it works or not, because I usually can double the profits. Especially if it's let's say I got a reel-to-reel player that sells for $400 new, and then it's got to be shipped. There's a risk on it getting damaged in shipping. There's a risk, as you're saying, that people will swap out parts and say it doesn't work and return it, and then you're out as a return. I offer free return shipping, so I would be out. I don't sell heavy items like that or anything like that, even if I can get the decent price on it. I'll either one, sell it locally, cash, it's out the door, no returns, or two, it gets torn apart, and usually it gets torn apart these days. Again, like a $400 reel-to-reel, there's 800 plus in parts in it. Just the hubs sometimes on those can go for 40 or 50 bucks. But again, they sell cheaply comparatively to parts online. There's people who'll just buy ones to tear apart off of eBay, buy them locally, and then tear them apart and sell the parts. It's a thing. People do it. I've done it many, many times. The first time I did it, I bought a reel-to-reel for $2. It did not work at a garage sale. The block over from me, and as a unit not working, it wasn't worth anything really. Even if it was fixed, you know, I spent the money to get it fixed, I wouldn't get a good return on my investment. But I started looking at the pieces with a screwdriver and a little bit of time. I bagged it. I wrote where it was from. I was able to just look on ended listings on eBay really quickly and really easily, because I knew somewhat what many of the items were called or what they were used for from the days when I used to help out with projectionists for 35mm film. So I knew some of this similar equipment and stuff, and we just tore it apart, and I labeled it and sold every single piece that belonged on every single one of the reel-to-reels I got through eBay. I don't have a single piece left from any of them that I had, including the cases actually sold too. Just what I do. Rick Duke, how are you doing, Rick? Multiple photos posted at one time would be a game changer. I have not posted since the first time because one photo at a time is rough. Rick, if you want to post for Patreon too, you can go to the Facebook, but just make sure you send me a notice that you did that. You can add them in the email and Facebook, Rick, that way. So just FYI. So many people do that, but just again, email me in Patreon that you sent it that way, because I don't have time to look at most of my Facebook comments and questions. I get on a specific day, and one day last week alone, I said, well, let me see if I can get to it. There was 97 things that I needed to reply to in Facebook. I can't do 97 comments, questions, photos, and comments. So my Patreon group does get first dibs on my time. Again, because they're investing time and energy into the videos and stuff. I mean, I'm not offering a get-rich-quick scheme at all. I think anybody in Patreon knows. I'm just offering you content and my knowledge, I guess you could say. Good, bad, or indifferent. You don't like it for the $9.99 fee. You can look at whatever you want for the month that you pay the $9.99. I've got, I don't know, a lot of hours of video. I would say there's 68 or 69 videos up right this minute. So there's lots of videos up on topics. If you're in Patreon too, I had some people were surprised there were so many videos. When you first log into Patreon, if you slide down, it goes way down to video number 1. So you're at video 66 when you log in. It goes all the way down to video 1, and there's other content in there as well, too, besides the videos. Let me see here. A&M Hunter, just saw my first vid of yours recommended by Dusty. I'm not sure who Dusty is, but I appreciate that. I saw the one where your bag flew away. I don't know if you're talking to me or talking to somebody else on that one. I think that's a Pat D's thing there. Poshmark now accepting toys in their listings. Yeah, I'm still not going to mess with Poshmark. I didn't like the whole aspect of it. Wasn't worth a new experience after that. We tried it for 6-7 months and it just wasn't for me. I made so much more money wasting my time, or not wasting, but giving my time to other endeavors, that it just wasn't worth my time wasting it. Welcome, A&M Hunter. Yeah, good to have you first time around. Good to hear that as well, too. Hey, Duncan, how are you doing? Don, I am ready for... Hang on, I just lost you there, Duncan. Let me get back. My feed bounces so bad. I am ready for Q4. Thousands of QV stamps on covers ready to list. What are you waiting for, Duncan? I mean, we're listing those right now. In all honesty, I list as much as I can throughout the summer when my guys are out of school, because I have more labor hours available. I mean, I've got more people that can work for longer hours during the summer. So for us, that's my best time to list. So we'll list till like October, when school starts, just jam-packed. And then from there, we'll be targeted listing certain items that will sell better. Christmas items, they'll categorize, sort, and do other things that normally we wouldn't. I do have an animated video thing coming out too that I've got some guys working on too. So my time's split across many different avenues these days. Anything out of eBay Open that you were happy to hear? Just the same old to me. I didn't see anything earth-shattering. I didn't go to eBay Open. I wouldn't waste my business time or money on it, truthfully. Again, you're paying $1,500 for airline tickets. You're paying who knows what for the hotel. It's a minimum of $3,000 out the window, and then I'm not there sourcing. I'm not here running the business. I'm the pilot of my business, I guess you would say, and I like to be in control and know what's going on. To me, it would have just been a distraction. I can socialize here. Again, I would have loved to meet a lot of people and other YouTubers and things like that too, but my bottom line is what matters. I've got a son with issues, and I don't want to. My foot's on the gas pedal now. I've got it floored to the floor in my business, and I don't want to let go and let off for a second. We went on vacation for a little while with my son because he had some medical issues, and we want to make sure we spend time and everything and just relax. But my business doesn't shut down because I've got employees, so I'm still hammering it. We're hammering everything we can. I'm still doing 12, 14-hour days, pretty much most every day lately. I don't think I've taken a day off until a week or so ago, until like Christmas was the last time I had any days off. I work every day of the week by choice. I don't have to. Sundays I do art. The rest of the week it's all eBay. Saturdays paperwork. Saturday is also Sellbrite, things along that line too. Weekdays are all about listing, photographing, and sourcing, nothing else. We take time off to do things that we have to do, but my pedal is floored. I'm getting as much up across the board, cross-listing everything. It's the best way to advance businesses cross-listing. Yeah, if you're not on a bunch of sites, you should broadcast out. McCrary, depending on what you're selling, probably could be a good platform. But again, a site like McCrary or Bonanza or Ruby Lane has a minuscule amount of reach compared to eBay. They've got a small budget for advertising. They've got small group of people that follow those pages. Just because there's not enough on them to make it a viable platform compared to eBay. Now, it may be viable for certain items, but overall, for me, for my personal business, it's not. But again, eBay Open, I didn't see anything earth-shattering. I heard pretty much everything that eBay Open had already discussed through. I'm on eBay Expressions. We get a lot of information on things that are going to happen. If you talk to folks like Duncan and Kathy and several other folks, you hear about stuff that's going on, that's going to happen here, sometimes a year before it's even announced over here, because they test market everything overseas first. So pretty much everything you guys have heard from eBay Open, I've already heard. Or the one or two issues that I've been were brought up to me by someone at eBay Open, while they were still at eBay Open, and they were nothing earth-shattering. I didn't get anything out of it. I got what I thought I would get out of it, which was, nothing really new. But I keep up on the ball. I read Wall Street Journal. I read a lot of online reports, e-commerce and stuff like that other people don't, because my business is the internet. So whatever industry you're in, you got to know the industry. You got to know what's going on. So I follow all those articles and mags, and I want to know what's going on. I read those articles, and only for that, to know if maybe there's a trend I need to keep up with. How can I keep my business going? How can I keep sales increasing? It's doing stuff like that. If you're not up on what your business is, or where the market's going, you're missing out. I shouted out some current major inside trends that were going on in Patreon in the last BOLO video, and those are like the hot items now. There's hot items in any industry you're looking at. You got to follow what's going on and pay attention, and there's ways to do that. As I said, online magazines, I should say. I don't buy any paper magazines at all. I haven't done that, other than reselling, of course. But let's hop back over into some questions here. And just a second here, I'll show you one other item that I purchased in bulk real quick here. Game sells for $39. Game sells for $39. If it's a routine sell, it depends on age on that too, Danielle. I would look up on Terapeak as well. As I said, look up on Terapeak and see if you can find any other paperwork from other games, what they're going for. Sometimes $39, that type of game, I don't know the game specifically, but sometimes $39 people will buy a vintage game just to play it. They're not buying it for collectible aspect, even though it has some collectible interest. People play vintage games. I've played in modern days, with friends and stuff that are into collectibles too. We've played like the Alien board game. I've played the Starsky and Hutch board game. I've played the Beverly Hillbillies board game. We're talking 60s board games that we've played, in 2015, even 2018. So people buy stuff at that range. And even sometimes if the board game may sell, paperwork may mean nothing to people. So it just depends. Look up on Terapeak and look up other paperwork, not other games, so to speak, and try to judge it from there. Deep end of the sandbox, most valuable. Well, thank you very kindly. I appreciate that. Ms. French Twist. I take everything apart. Many people like those labels. Most people would sell those in big bulk lots on eBay. They're not going to mess with selling them individually. I will sell them individually. I will definitely put those on Amazon as well, too, believe it or not. I could sell those on Etsy as well, too. Obviously, I pay for Etsy, but they're 4-month listings and all that kind of stuff, too. So, let's see here. My feed just disappeared. Hang on just a second. I really hate the feed on here, in all honesty. Yeah, but taking electronics apart, I always do better. I even have a video on broken TVs. I've made a ton of money on broken TVs sitting down by the road, even. Not just on scrap, because many TVs, they have some decent chunks of aluminum, and there are copper in some of them. It just depends. But usually the parts in there can be tested with a standard voltmeter, and you can still sell the parts out of a broken TV. Most modern TVs have like 3 or 4 main parts that you can swap. I usually take a TV apart myself and just fix it by buying a couple parts. It's always cheaper than even just taking it in to find out how much it would cost to fix. Is usually more than you could just get the parts for. So in all honesty, Kathy, started in January, just had my 3rd month in a row of 2,000 sales. Well, thank you, Kathy. Watched your TV guide video, picked up about 90 of them for 20. Have all of 1971. You might do good, Cherry Picker, on listing like an entire year if you have an entire year together. That's an iffy one. You'll have to research it because sometimes a whole year will go higher than individually in very rare occasions, only because like a new collector will come on and won't want to sit there and piece them out, and they'd rather spend a little extra to get the whole year and be done with it. I've run into, at least with TV Guide and a few other issues like that. Honeymooners, if you're talking about board games, I've had that one too. And I've actually played the Honeymooners board game. There's a new version of it from like the 90s, I want to say, and there's a vintage one too. 70s TV shows, I've got a video actually coming out on just TV show material. Anything TV from the 70s, even 80s and before, I buy. I snag it up if it's dirt cheap. Hang on, let me get my feedback up here because it constantly disappears. I am on Instagram, The Auction Professor on Instagram. I'm The Auction Professor on Facebook. I actually have two pages on Facebook. I have a business page on Facebook, and then The Auction Professor group on Facebook, Instagram, and then Patreon as well. The Auction Professor on all those sites. We'll be on Twitter as well, but I'm just pretty much going to be posting links on Twitter, and that's about it. Just trying to broaden my reach the best we can. Yeah, A&M Hunter, McCrary, Poshmark are small, and mostly I don't sell stuff that would be practical on their platform. Even if they had toys, nobody's going to know about it for the most part. Toy collectors go to the same places over and over again, in all honesty. Yeah, and they are more of a beginning platform. I do agree. SW, if you had a U.S. Army book of embroidered patches worth about $700, would you sell the book or piece out the patches? And I would piece out the patches. It depends on the patches in it, I should say. Watch the video coming out tomorrow, and you'll get a little look on some of what we do in that field too. Patches I sell quite often. There's a lot of reproduction patches, so know your business. Don't list them as real if you're not sure. One patch could go for $700. We've sold patches, and you might get 1,000 on a patch. Tracy, welcome. Glad to have you. Well, thank you. No one's required to join Patreon. All I can guarantee you in Patreon is content. There's no get-rich-quick scheme in my book. So anybody trying to sell you, I can show you some shortcuts maybe, but if you don't put the legwork in and spend the time to know your department or your area or your niches, you can look at 100 different people's videos and get nothing out of them. Everything I try to show is going to take legwork from somebody. So, that's one reason I try to devote as much time as I can to like Patreon, only because these folks, you're not only investing money, which, it's minuscule amounts if you make money off of it. And I know people who watch the videos, get a good return on your investment, even the free ones, just for your time. But, if you put the legwork in, you're going to get something out of content, whether it's my content or any other YouTuber's content. You can't just watch a video and say, hey, I know everything. I'm giving you years and years of information. I've been doing this since eBay has been called eBay. I've collected stuff since I was like 7. So we're talking over 40 years of me wheeling, dealing, trading, going to shows. I used to have antique booths. Used to set up at flea markets and antique fairs, antique festivals. I set up and had displays and art galleries even many years. I used to do art shows. I've had stuff in magazines and newspapers, artwork-wise. So, I've been around the block in many different fields. So, let me get back up here. Well, and again, thank you, Tracy, for the kind words as well. Yeah, an entrepreneur is more than just an eBay seller. I have people say that's what they are, but all they want to do is eBay, and they're not going out of the box. They're not expanding their business. They just want to sell as few items and do as little work as they can. That's not being an entrepreneur. Most anyone that I know, and if you watch Shark Tank or something like that, that's one of the few shows I do watch. Some of it's set up, I obviously, but the overall ideas, thoughts, and comments are legit. There's something that I've heard in real business. Again, I was a regional. I used to run a whole region. My region did $11.2 or $11.1 million a year in sales for the whole region, and I was responsible for every dime of that going in and going out, and to account for every dime of it. So you're going to hear that from your boss at some point. I heard it from West Coast division management and things along that line, depending on where I was working at the time. You gotta know your business. You can't just walk in and watch my video or anybody's video and I got it, I'm gonna make a fortune. Be optimistic. Being able to just survive from week to week is enough. It's hard enough for many people. To get to a point where you're making enough money to pay your bills and have extra is an accomplishment for anybody. If you watch like Shark Tank, and this is a nationally televised show, Mr. Wonderful is my favorite. Mark Cuban's good too. I don't like some of their political aspirations, but business-wise is a different story. I don't worry about political or personal feelings. We're talking about business here, so you got to pay attention to that. You got to take it seriously. Most of those type of people, like Cuban, went door to door selling stuff if he had to. He lived on romaine noodles, which we've done and stuff. We didn't eat if we didn't have to. Every dime we made went back into business for years. That's what it takes to build it up. It's the only way to do it. There's no I shouldn't say there's no shortcut, but there's no quick way to get rich. And I don't care to be rich. I just care to be able to financially, take care of bills and medical and things like that too. Medical is a huge thing. If everybody had medical coverage, I wouldn't have to worry. Neither would anybody else. Just my opinion. I think everybody should be entitled to live a healthy life. But I don't want to get political at all. So let's just move on from that. I have 3 huge boxes of Inferium that I have been ignoring far too long. Any suggestions on where to start? I don't have a following for such items or an expertise even after watching all your videos. Deep end of the sandbox. Just pick a couple items out, pick out postcards or pick out a certain field and start looking them up. You look up the same type of items over and over and over again, you're eventually going to know those items and you won't have to look them up anymore. That's how I learned. You'll make mistakes in the beginning. There's a learning curve. You're going to list stuff too low, too high, but that's how you learn. If you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. You can't just walk in and do it. And I'm a hands-on person. Everything that I've done, I've figured it out on my own. Whether, I've got to run tests or I've got to shoot out and I made a mistake and, whatever the case may be, I've made mistakes. We've lost money. We've done bad deals, but you learn, I've done this for more than 20 years. We've done it since Yahoo Auctions was there. Before eBay even existed, I was selling online, just by a whim. It wasn't like our planned. And again, I never planned to be a full-time online seller. It happened after I got out of college 7-8 years, 9 years ago, I think now. I have a master's degree, but I don't use it for that. 100% glad I did it. I'd never give that up for a minute. I'm glad it made me a better person. I'm not saying it's something needed for everybody, but I was not as disciplined as I should have been. I looked at things differently, so I do believe college made me a majorly better person all around in knowledge, experience, dedication, ethics, and the whole works around. So, everybody takes what they want, but I was fully 100% into college. I graduated with a master's with, very high, almost a 4.0, because I dedicated everything to that. I'm in or I'm not in. I'm not going to do it if I'm not going to be 100% serious. And that's how I do my business. Not a brag, just how I am. I'm anal retentive on things. I'm long-winded. I know I go on, but that's how I am. This is just me. I'm not putting on a facade for you to see and hope you like it. You either do or you don't. And I do have haters, as most people do. That's just the way it is. Everybody's allowed to believe what they want. Hopefully that answers. Just start looking them up, deep end. That's your best bet. Let me see here. The Dap House Vintage, Billy B. Hello again, Don. I would love a video on old brass instruments. I've been doing well with them. Instruments sell very well. I'll give you something that a lot of people don't know. One of the founding members and board members of eBay is a guitarist and a guitar dealer. If you want the area that you pay the least amount of fees in, which is half of any other area, are guitars. Look up guitar, look up the policy on guitars, and it's all because of one of the owners or board members of eBay. It's a specialty thing. Guitars have like a 6% final value fee, and there's all kinds of other things with guitars. Musical instruments do very well. They're hard though to, if you don't know them very well, you can get taken real easily. You'll mix up a high school band instrument with like a fine grade musical instrument, because there's different levels of brass instruments. I'll put that down here. I don't have a pen for the first time I think in ever. I've always had a pen here, but I will memorize that and write it down when I'm off to put instruments down. I've got a list of probably like 400 video ideas from some of my subscribers, and most of it's from me. I had a patron also ask, Nobleness D, I think is his name. I do apologize if I mixed that up. About maybe having people send in topics for me to cover and things like that. I don't really want to do that, only because I don't like to put out topics that I haven't personally delved into. I wouldn't want to give out a topic that maybe the person wasn't really as knowledgeable as they thought, and I don't want to have anything on the channel that isn't legit content or bona fide by at least me. And I'm anal retentive, so I've double researched, I've double checked, I've looked into all the content that I put out to make sure that it's good content. At least that's my take on it. And that's why I don't do certain videos on certain things that I don't touch on. That's just the way it is. Again, if you haven't hit the like button, pop your thumb down there on that like, the thumbs up if you would, if you do like it. Yeah, you've arrived. I got six dislikes already. Some days if I talk about certain things, I get a ton more just for talking about topics. So I do try to stay away from many topics. Everybody's not going to like what I say. That's just the way it is. I'm not going to change who I am or what I do or what I talk about for that. I am who I am, and I'm a legitimate person. This is what I do. This is my full-time thing. So anyway, hang on just a second here. Let me pop over to the other feed so I can see the feedback, or not the feedback, the comments again. Let's see here. Yeah, again, as I said, hit the thumbs up if you haven't. Which branch of military goes for the most, and are Civil War patches, and are they Civil War patches you are speaking about? There's almost no Civil War patches that you will find. So we're talking about World War I and World War II and newer, up into Korean and Vietnam War patches. Vietnam, and most of the patches that go for the most money are pilot, flight, squadron patches and things along that line. Those are the ones that always go for the most. Flyers, those are usually what we get the most out of. Again, some patches can go for $3,000-$4,000 for an individual custom-made leather patch. Like a Flying Tiger patch goes for a ton of money. I can't say there's a specific. Voltigeurs, maybe if you're talking Civil War, they'll say there'll be an eagle button with a V in the center, or a rifleman's button or something along that line would go for more if you're talking about Civil War era. But again, you're not going to find many patches. I've only found a few epaulets in modern days in the last, say, 5 or 6 years. 10, 15 years ago when we were in the military, Civil War stuff showed up a lot more, but not anymore these days. Just finished listening 400 hours of listings, so yeah, do the work. Yes, definitely do the work. Definitely do the work. The more you get up, the more you're going to sell. I mean, it's just a fact. Dom's in here right now. There's Dom, Primetime Treasure Hunter. Check him out if you haven't. He's on my favorites list. If you look on my main channel page, he's one of my liked folks. And I don't have many on there, but I do have him, and we do stuff together. We have another date tentatively coming up soon, too. And I've got videos with him, and he's been on my channel as well, too. I don't do that other than the folks that I do respect and believe are legit, and Dom is one of those folks, so. Tracy. Maybe I missed something here. Yeah, junk journals do work very well. Yeah, I always look everything up, though. Going back to that. Let me pop back down here. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm a little behind in the feed, too, so I'm sure Dom was in here a few minutes ago. And Rusty Raccoon, how are you doing tonight? The Dap House Vintage, Billy B. I'll just call you Billy B if that doesn't offend you. Reselling is the best example of you get out what you put in. If you're not listing constantly, you will not be successful. Not having a crummy boss should be all the motivation you need. That's my personal opinion. I would never, ever, ever want to work for somebody again in my entire life. It's just a fact. Let me pop down. Yeah, Kathy, me and Dom are going to be doing some more. We've got a tentative date for me, Dom, and Chris, and you probably see Dom on again, just me and Dom as well too, from the way it looks. Kathy, I have a master's too and unemployed. Now I could have gotten a job, but depending on it depends on where you live. Everybody doesn't realize this. Down south, there were very few people who had the experience or knowledge to be a regional manager for a restaurant chain. It just wasn't something that you'd find. So I would get, in some areas, twice what I would up here for the exact same job. Now, if I wanted to move after I got my master's degree, we could have moved and taken a job somewhere else, but I'm not moving around anymore. I've got family. My mom's not doing well. My son has issues. We've got doctor not too far. So, we don't have that in our goal. If we move, we're moving out to the country here locally, and, that'll be about all we're going to do. Carl Classini, or Classinex. If you don't make mistakes, you're not progressing. That's fully true. But my laziness is my favorite attribute. It makes me efficient. Yeah, I used to be lazy, and these days it's full-fledged. I mean, my pedal is floored constantly. Every day, I don't slack off. Somebody made a comment, after the gold video, you take your wife out or something like that. That's nothing. That gold wasn't even figured into my daily sales. We don't go out and celebrate stuff like that. To me, that's just a daily occurrence. And I'm not going to shoot out. I want you to watch the video if you're interested in knowing about how to sell gold and what the gold market goes and all that kind of stuff. But stuff like that, that should be your daily goals on doing things like that. We don't sell gold all the time. We don't go and swap it out. I let it sit here. Sometimes I've had, a lot of gold sitting around. Not so much anymore these days, and we just don't swap it out because I don't need the money. It's not going anywhere. Sometimes I'll wait to see if it went up or is down, and gold had been going up, so we decided to sell it that way. Let's see here. Have you ever sold a Pete Rose baseball board game? I do believe I know the one you're talking about. I know there's ads even for that same one that I've sold. No, I have not had that one personally, but I have seen it, and I have sold another baseball game. There's jockeys. You name it, there's a board game for it, in all honesty. There's a football one with cards in it. There's a baseball one with baseball cards in it, too, that the cards are worth like 10 times what the game is worth. Let's see here. Great advice. Just do it right. It's how I learned all I know about 80s toys. Yeah, I know 80s toys from being around in the 80s, in all honesty. I don't think there's an 80s toy that I can't ID, in all honesty. I've had them all, even as a child. I played with most of them. I have a rare promo music CD. The album cover inserts are wavy from moisture. Any thoughts on making the cover flat again? Sean J. Now, I do talk about some things like that in Patreon, but something on like that, you run a risk of it warping even worse with heat. You're going to have to test it if you're going to want to do something like that. I don't go into much detail here on YouTube on fixing it. You're going to, honestly, that's going to be a risk for you on a printed promo CD. Now, if it's just black and white, you have a better chance on being able to fix it without damaging it. Color items, sometimes the heat it takes to flatten something that out will ruin the ink. I've had it happen in the past, so you got to have a little bit of knowledge on it. Some things I know right off the bat, don't fix, don't repair, don't touch them. Other things I always repair. It just depends. I'm big into repairing. That's why I can buy things cheaper than other people, because I have the ability to repair them. We actually have acid-free, museum-quality glues and backing rice paper, and we repair paper as well too. And I've repaired boxes and many other things, and I'm going to be showing another repair video too in Patreon as well. Yeah, and the haters, yeah, we get them. I mean, I've got, what, 600 dislikes on it now or something, like 7. So, people do that. You don't like the content. I don't know why people watch if they don't like the content. I don't go to somebody's page and hit a dislike, regardless if I disagree or don't agree with them. I'm not going to waste my time. It's a waste of time. If you're here to learn, you're here to learn. If you're not, you better go to another channel, I guess. No offense, but let's see here. Think of the boss. Yeah, I would hate to have a boss. My 60-day total is right around $8,000, and I owe most of that to you, Don. Well, thank you very kindly. I appreciate that. Money's out there. Summer, I don't care what anybody says. If you sell good stuff, and I know there's many people on the feed right now that I've personally talked to, that their sales in the summer are now more than they were in fourth quarter. I'm doing more than I did in fourth quarter. Let me just show one more item here. Now, I talk about these all the time. I got maybe 8,000 or 9,000 slides. Stuff like this, again, many people will just list them in a big lot, sell them for $300-400. I go through these. We'll throw 50 on a slide viewer. I got light tables, so I can throw them on a light table and look at a whole bunch all at once. Upside down, right side, whatever. It doesn't matter as long as I can tell the content. And I can quickly go through and we'll sort them by type, what's in them, if it's airplanes or this or that. I'll pull out the high dollar ones, sell those, and then I'll just go from there. Usually I can get my money back from a lot like this with only selling 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 or 7 slides total out of the entire bag. I'll get all my money back, and then it's gravy. And I'll make 4, 5, 6, 7, even 10 or 20 times what somebody would if they sold that as a bagged lot. Just FYI. I get them in the carousels. I always take them out. Carousels aren't worth a dime. The cartridges aren't worth a dime. All that stuff I take them out of and discard. They actually scrap them for scrap metal. Let's see here. Hey, Meredethy, how are you doing? Let me see here. Don, I'm in Cleveland. I drove up there and got a hotel for a week. Will you let me shadow you? I am so serious. I want livable income from eBay. I don't bring anybody in like that. I just don't have time. I've got employees that we train and do all kinds of stuff. I don't do any one-on-ones with anybody anymore. I used to have a thing on Patreon. I even cut that all off just because I don't have the time at all. In my day changes from day to day. I don't, deal with anybody that I haven't associated with personally in the past either. Nothing personal against anybody. I've got that offer. I don't know how many times from even people here in the city. I'm very private. We as a family are very private as a general rule. I know we're on YouTube here, but my personal life is not shared for the most part. You're dealing with my business life. So, all I can say is watch as many videos as you can get to and go from there. Again, that's your best bet. I just don't do any one-on-ones or anything like that at all. No offense to anybody. Again, I get that question. I've had dozens of people ask me stuff like that, mentoring and mentorships and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to be responsible for someone making it or breaking it. If you watch my videos and you dig in and stuff like that, and you take the information and you do the legwork, you're going to do far better off than just somebody watching videos and thinking it's just so easy. It's not easy. It's not hard. And I earned every single piece of everything I own is mine. I earned every dime of it. And I do mean earned with sweat and labor and everything else. These days, obviously, I don't have to do as much of that if I don't want to. I still do it. I still, as I said, 12, 14-hour days. Again, that's what it's going to take you to be successful. I'm getting older. I've got that midlife time coming in my head. And, I'm not going to sit back anymore and wait and hope this changes or that. I'm changing it myself. I'm making my own future for me, my family, the wife, the kids. That's what I got to do. That's what I need to do, and that's what my mind wants me to do. I've got to drive. That's key. Anthony, if you're serious and dig in hard enough, Cleveland has got a decent market. I've been to Cleveland picking many times. I may set up a group meeting where I'll take a bunch of people maybe to an antique mall or something. I've talked about that. That would probably be about the best I would be able to do with a group at once. Again, my time is pretty valuable because I'm not a marketeer. I'm not really a YouTuber like everybody else, and I'm not marketing, programs or anything like that. This is my business is first, and where I make 99.9% of my funds is from me doing this as a business, my online. That's where my money comes from. You know, I don't get much at all from YouTube. If you've done YouTube, you'll realize that very quickly, that it's a long process, and you could make it or you could be, you know, just broke for a long time off of YouTube. So, you know, I invest a lot of it too into new stuff. GoPro I spent some money on, and you know, it came out of funds from here. So, you know, most everything I get, whether it's YouTube or Patreon or whatever, I'm investing it back into equipment. I don't keep it. I don't make a profit. I don't go buy new cars. I don't buy new clothing. Well, I shouldn't say I don't buy new clothing, because I do buy some new clothing. But, you know, anyway, let me move on from there. Where are we at? Working on listing more. I own a brick and mortar, so I have been trying to work on the balance to promote my growth. Yeah, I've thought, you know, people ask me on brick and mortar. I would never, not saying you can't make it in brick and mortar, but I would never want to do it around where I live, brick and mortar. You know, antique malls and stores come and go, and the ones that usually survive are the ones that are big malls, in all honesty. I've talked to, and I'll probably be doing a video similar to the gold video, at an antique mall. My dogs are down here. Probably at an antique mall too. And we're going to show you the ins and outs of all that market here as well too. I've done antique malls as a vendor. I've done flea markets, antique fairs, festivals, auctions. You name it, I've did it. If it's related to antiques, I've literally sold there, been it, done it, or whatever the case may be. Again, not bragging. It's just I've done this for 20 plus years, so I've done it all related to antiques. Let's see here. When dealing with old Japanese soapstone figures, if it is chipped or damaged, is it still worth... I can't read it all. Is it still worth picking up? Depends on the piece. If it's vintage, old, antique, a true antique, like a Meiji era piece of soapstone of any kind is going to be worth some good money. But the problem is most people can't tell the difference between a broken 1960s piece of soapstone versus a, you know, Meiji era 1911 or before piece. Or Tokugawa, or any of the eras that you may be looking at for that stuff. Most pieces I run into in that field are reproductions or modern day as well too. So I have bought cheap or broken pieces. I'll show you a marble piece. I may have shown it before, not today, but in another video. I'll buy broken marble busts and statues, and we'll have them cut down. If it's a full stand, I've got a full standing marble statue. And I haven't cut this one down because we really like it broken. It doesn't matter. But I'll go into stuff like that too. There's things you can do to bring the value up of pieces that are broken. And I will discuss that in the future, though. Figures, and touch on soapstone for just another minute here. There's hardly any way to tell the difference between old soapstone piece and a new soapstone piece, other than the quality and, let's say, maybe the technique used to create that piece. It's usually the quality and how well the work is done will be the deciding factor, whether it's vintage, new, or junk. And if you haven't seen enough, you may not realize that you'd be looking at a soapstone. Excuse me. But you may look at a piece and think it's old and think, wow, the quality looks really good to you. But until you've had it compared or seen enough vintage pieces, you may not realize that it's really inferior quality soapstone carving. You can carve a soapstone piece right now and make it look old real easily, so just keep that in mind. Most soapstone pieces that I run into are, got a little gnat in here, are like seals and things like that for envelopes, letters, and things, and they're usually newer pieces. Well, thank you as well, Marrakech. Rusted Raccoon. Yeah, it's called something like that, Rusted Raccoon. I can't remember. I know he's on the cover of it, the box cover, like on the left-hand side, if I'm not mistaken. No, I'm not filming in your basement, Sir Thristle. I love the old brick, you know. We had an apartment in outside of Pentagon City area during 9/11, and it was an old apartment. It was really neat. It was huge, and it was brick walls inside, and I just love that look. I've always liked brick. I love the old brick roads around here even. I thought I'd switch it up. I've got like 10 different brick backgrounds anyway. If you had to pick one bread and butter item, what would it be? When sales are slow, this item still sells. The heck with haters. If I had to pick, I don't have, most everything we sell sells all year round. Whether it be vintage toys like Marks or vintage Star Wars or any of that stuff sells all year round. A collector who wants a specific Star Wars toy that he's been dying to get doesn't care if it's summer, winter, spring, or fall. Same with paper. I couldn't center in on anything. I'd want to branch out. The only way you're going to make more money is to branch out. If you're new and you don't have a niche or an area, paper in general does very well. Again, I've got niches in paper. I've got niches in paper that I'm like the number one seller on all of eBay, and many of them nowadays. I think there's 6 now that we're the biggest seller on all of eBay, US eBay, in those items. I'm not going to get into what they are, but we do that. RA is always good. RA I would never give up. That's bread and butter for many. Wholesale's big bread and butter for us, though. So, and I'm not going to discuss too much on that because we've got ins that most people wouldn't have from doing this for a very long time. We're grandfathered in many categories people can't get ungated in these days and things like that, too. So my summer sales are the high. Let's just put it this way. Last month's sales were the highest month I've ever had on eBay in my entire life. The entire history of me doing eBay, going back as far. And I'm even talking about if we rate the money at what it would be 20 years ago when we're selling. We did really well back then, too. We did not have a slowdown. We were busier than fourth quarter. And my last fourth quarter was the busiest fourth quarter I've ever had. But again, we're working every day. I'm listing every day. And some days we're listing 400 or 500 items. Some days, I'm getting massive quantities of good stuff in. And I talk about having, a 90-day plan, a 60-day plan. I'll get my money back right away. We'll sell with even this big lot or the big lot of slides. I'll get my money back. I'll pull up the things that will sell quick, and I'll get my money back out of right away, and that money is not tied up. So if I have 1 million pieces of paper that I don't have listed, I probably have zip into those items. That's in all honesty, that's what I have into those. Wade is a real good guy. I do stuff with Wade as well, too. He's been on my channel. I've been on his channel. He's in a video of mine as well. There are some people that I get back and forth and do stuff with. Avon stuff can sell, but the catalogs, I haven't had much luck. Victoria's Secret's catalogs would sell better than Avon, in all honesty. Most of that stuff, though, doesn't sell super, super well in those categories. Avon does have some gold jewelry that will still sell for good money. Rusted Raccoon's summer sales are up 108%. Very good. Sean J., how many items minimal should I have up or have listed at any time to get more sales? Depends on what you're selling. There's no one answer that fits everybody in that. There's no way to do that. Some people could sell, have 3 items and sell 100 times more than I do. Depends on what the item's worth and how rare or how much it sells. We've got some wholesale items, the same 3 that I've talked about for a long while. I don't go into what they are, but I've got 3 wholesale items that no one else sells on Amazon. And we've sold them for now like 2.5 years, and they haven't died down at all. But it's 3 single items. You could almost make a living off those 3 items that I have. But again, we've got a family. There's more than just one person, and I've got goals and such forth too. We've got, 60,000 listings or something like that. 62,000, I think. More items you have up, the more you're going to make, obviously. But they all got to be good items. You got to look up them. Now, I used to look up every single item, but nowadays I've looked them up so much I know the items and I don't have to do it. So I save a lot of that time. If you're new, you're going to be sitting there looking up a ton of stuff to try to figure out what's worth what. There is no minimum or amount of stuff you should have up. If you're selling and going long tail like we do, you have to have more stuff up. If you're quick flipping and you can get good stuff that flips for high dollar, you're good. But there's no, like, I see people say you sell so many of these, you sell so many of that, you're going to make this much money. There's no way you're going to sell any set number of anything religiously. Now, I do sell, 5 or 6 minimum every single day of the week postcards, every single day in, day out. I don't count that as anything. I don't use that as a guarantee. Some days I might sell 50 postcards, but I at least sell that many, 5, 6, 7 every day of the week. Day in, day out, nonstop, every day, holidays, whatever day, bad day, economy's bad, whatever, they always sell, It's not a fortune on everyone, but it's a constant, steady income. It just depends on what you sell. I wished I could give you an answer. You list so many. There's no way to do that. There's no model that's true or an honest model that can do that. If you watch another channel and they have a list, you list 40 jeans on one day, 20 shoes on another, you're going to make this set amount of money. Anybody who's done this for any length of time knows that is just not a practical way. It's not going to work. That's fantasy world. And that is 100% fantasy world. There's just no way you're going to be able to sell everything. There's too many deciding factors that will throw that off the first day you try to do that. And I've never seen anybody that was able to do those numbers on any one of those ideas or any of those platforms or get rich quick schemes. Just a scheme. It doesn't work. And if they're pushing the scheme and that's all they're talking about, maybe they're not really a seller. They're just someone trying to market it like they're a seller to get you to pay for a service or a fee or something else like that. Especially if they're not showing you your store, or they've got a new store every other week, or they're trying this or trying that. And it's just unpractical stuff. There's a lot of people here on YouTube that, I'm sure I'll get some more thumbs down, but there's a lot of people here on YouTube who talk about eBay who don't really do eBay very much. They're not really eBay sellers anymore. They're not Amazon sellers. They make money off videos and marketing and all this stuff. And now, again, there's nothing wrong with that, but know the difference. Know the ones that know their business versus the ones that are showing you enough to get your money. And I'm not trying to criticize anybody because everybody's got their own ploy. I've got a Patreon group that people have to pay for, but again, I'm only offering content. I'm not promising anybody anything because there's no promises in any of the world whatsoever. If you haven't figured that out, that's going to be the hardest lesson for you to learn if you've been doing anything like this and you haven't figured that out. There's no quick way. There's no get rich. That's all fantasy world. That's all, fantasy island, I guess you could say. Do people do that? Are there people that get rich and stuff? Yeah. But, it's one in a million. It's just so far between that it's just not something you're going to see. But let me pop back up here. I'm going to have to speed through here a little bit because we're getting kind of to the end. And I said I would cut it off, but, we've got a lot of questions, and I do try to get to them all. I know I'm not going to make it this time. Let's see here. Hey, Michelle, how are you doing? Sammy, how do you clean slides? You can use some alcohol, honestly. It's fairly safe on that, on slides. Just a very careful wipe. I usually don't have to clean them if they've been in a case or anything. I'll leave them the way they are. I've only cleaned slides maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. And you can use alcohol if you're careful. Don't use the high-grade alcohol, lowest content. The slides with the red borders sell good. Yeah, Kodachrome. Red border slides are what you really want. Those are the best ones. There are other ones that aren't just red border that do go for some good money, but red borders do well. Carousels in the boxes don't sell very well in my book, considering I don't mess with them because you might get 10 or 15 bucks if you're lucky for a carousel. And then again, it depends on the version of the carousel and what unit it fits into. And I've got, a stack of them here that we pulled out all these slides from. I'm not going to mess with them. We're scrapping them. Let's see here. Yeah, Anthony, it's not so much weirdos. I just don't have the time. Not trying to insinuate anybody's a weird or anything. Patreon's more like a little more in-depth content of what I do on here, and they're longer videos and they go into depth. I do some repairs. Maybe it's what you're looking for, maybe not. I mean, there's most of what I talk about, there's no real secrets other than some of the items that we pick up. You're going to have to do the legwork. There's just no other way around it. Yeah, Miss French Twist. Everyone must pay their own dues. Yeah, for the most part, yes. I've been lucky enough to have, between college and Lou, one of my old bosses, some motivational figures that help push me to learn and to do better and to think differently than I used to. College, in all honesty, really helped my thought, my brain. helped me better at what I am, and I'm not nervous or worried about anything anymore. I don't really care. I was nervous in college. I didn't think I could do it, and grade-wise, we paid for a lot of the college through scholarships that we earned from our grade, our GPA. I went into my master's degree with a 3.97 out of a 4.0 grade, and I'm not trying to brag. I was that dedicated to it. And in high school, I sometimes got C's and D's. I flunked classes because I didn't care about it. But these days, everything's different. I've got goals, and nothing's going to stop me anymore. I guess that would be the biggest point. You got to have this mentality, even if you're working for somebody else, like Anthony here. If you're still stuck with somebody else, and I want to say you're working maybe in a warehouse, maybe you said before. I try to remember some folks. I've been in a warehouse. I've worked in a glass factory where I watched somebody get their throat slit by a pane of glass and never came back. I've worked in a lot of bad places, and I did what I had to do until I could get out of that place. I've only walked off one job, and it was justified. And, I already had something in the backup plan ready for it. But, I worked 2 jobs if I had to. I've worked 3 jobs if I had to. Hours should mean nothing. If you're only getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep, Monday through Friday, and you're getting somewhere, that's what you need to do with it. I mean, that's the best I can tell you. Leg work has been the number one thing that I do. But again, I'm motivated. I've got a child with an issue. I would never work for somebody again with all the horrible experiences I had. As I said, I would probably honestly think about shooting myself in the foot as opposed to having to work in a restaurant again. And I'm being serious. I mean, I thought about it. We talked about it when a cousin of mine, he talked about cutting off his toe so he could collect unemployment or I think disability. And even if he felt he'd walk weird from that point on, he would have still to the point of almost wanting to do it because where he lived there wasn't much opportunity. And I get it. I've been there. I would just never want to do that again. I've had terrible bosses, terrible jobs. You're just a number to most people. They don't care. All they want is you to earn them money, and they keep most of the money, not you. So anyway, let me pop on down here. Yeah, anything you can do, like a mobile car wash, Anthony's saying, anything you can have if you've got several businesses. I mean, we got 3 businesses technically out of what we personally do right now. So, I would have never thought about that had I not done college and all this other stuff. And again, I'm not saying you need college. I'm not saying that at all. I just needed more discipline and more thought into things. It's my personal problem. That was one of my drawbacks in the past. I was hot-headed, and I went off on things, and I just wore too much on my shoulder back in the day. But nowadays, I get it. I fully get, and I know where I'm going anyway. I guess that's the biggest thing. Gate City Pickers, welcome. Yeah, we're gonna have to cut it off in here. I know I'm way past what I said I would. Got a hold of an alabaster cigar ashtray. You should be able to find some of those on Terra Peak, Gate City. Just FYI. I'm going to have to cut it off here. I know I didn't get to a bunch of folks here. I do try to answer every single question on here. I know people on other feeds bounce around, but, if you're in here early enough, your question's going to get answered no matter what. So, again, I'm not trying to snub anybody or anything else like that. I try to do a good thing. We've got close to 160 folks in. If you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Again, everything we talk about here is business. So if you're taking it personal and you're leaving a thumbs down because you think it's a personal attack on somebody, this is all business. My boss was rough with me, and he told me what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. If you don't want to hear what you need to hear, that's your loss. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything for anybody. I stand by, the years I've done this and my knowledge on that kind of stuff. Again, I don't talk about stuff I don't know because I don't know it. I'm not going to give you information on stuff that I don't know. I don't think there's a thing that I've talked about that I haven't sold multiple times throughout my time of doing eBay. So just FYI. But I appreciate everybody coming on. And again, if you need any other advice or anything else like that, I am available. I don't have much time to do everything. I do have a Patreon. I am on Instagram, Facebook. I have 2 pages on Facebook as well, too. But again, I appreciate everybody, and thanks for coming on tonight. Hope you have a good week.